I'm so good at feedback now because I used to be so bad at it. So I am making a public apology to the men I used to date and old friends in this podcast. I am sorry. I used to be so emotional, so reactive because I did not have the right skills, tools, and scripts on how to give feedback and receive them. But once I learned the right communication skills, tools, and scripts, my relationships with family members and loved ones deepened. I was able to move up so quickly in my career and now have my own business because I know how to communicate better. And more importantly, I learned how to advocate for myself while ensuring I understood the other party. Because what I've learned, it's not about who's right or wrong. And in this episode, I will go over 4 tools and scripts on how to give feedback because communication is a skill. Also, how to receive feedback. So you can unlearn bad habits, which I had to do, and learn new habits to deepen relationships and advocate for yourself. So let's drop the beat. Legacy Leader, welcome to the Color Your Dreams podcast for One with Color and Allies. I'm Elaine Lucartas, your host and a business and executive career coach that LA Weekly named the #1 thought leader and Apple News awarded one of the top 5 business coaches. So, are you going through an identity crisis in your career or life, or maybe both? Then this is the space and place where you can take the time to reflect and redefine your own definition of success and happiness. So get ready to have some conscious conversations about all the things. Now grab your coffee, tea, or boba, and let's color your dreams to lead your legacy. I just got back from my parents' home. I took the day off to take my parents to their annual doctor's appointment. And what a privilege and choice to be there for my parents. I remember being a teenager, being bullied, where my parents were there for me, to now having this privilege and choice to take care of them. And it's funny that I'm doing this podcast after seeing my parents because as a first gen immigrant, let me tell you, growing up, I was horrible at communicating and giving feedback to my parents. I was like the worst teenager who knew how to make my dad cry. And don't worry, I'm grown. I know my wrongdoings and went through a lot of therapy. I also grew up in a very reactive and emotional household. It might just because I grew up in the Filipino culture, but it's what I grew up to. And maybe you relate to it, depending on how you grew up, that was probably what you were taught to communicate. And when I went into the workforce, I realized that I could not communicate the same way. I also found myself quiet and not standing up for myself like I do now. There are even points, even in my personal relationships, where I would just blow up because I wasn't willing to share how I felt or didn't even know how to share how I felt to the right way, unless it was like yelling before. So, why is providing feedback hard to do? Maybe you're like me. Maybe you're a woman of color, part of a marginalized population who was taught not to try to cause miscommunication, conflict, or fights, just to keep to themselves, not share how they felt, whatever it did to make everyone happy in the family or collective group. And why is providing feedback important to do? Well, first, it allows you to express and understand what is important to you and what is not important to you. For example, it might seem so obvious, but expressing yourself allows you to decide if you're in a safe work environment or relationship, whether it's romantic or platonic. Like if you notice you're able to be yourself more with people you feel safe around as opposed to people you're not comfortable with, you can't be yourself. And when you provide feedback to your colleague or friend or partner, you're able to see if they're willing to hear and listen. So both of you could take actions to deepen the relationship. Or if you make the hard decision to end it for what's best for both you and the other person. Second, feedback helps improve work relationships and the culture. A great work culture is one where people feel comfortable sharing and receiving feedback and being less anxious. Actually, share more about this in episode 40, why difficult conversations improve our life and work relationships with Erica Corday and India Jackson. Third, feedback deepens relationships. I mean, why do you think makeup sex happens after a conflict with a partner? And when feedback is done right and safely, both individuals get to better understand one another. You might better understand why you probably react to something that you didn't think was a big deal. And you probably understand why the other person reacts a certain way as well. So let's get to the juicy stuff. So, how do we give feedback? Well, I'm going to share with you some 4 tools and scripts. First, ask when the other person is available to have this conscious conversation, which is also known as difficult conversation. Don't just drop a bomb and give someone feedback like, hey, I really didn't like what you said yesterday. Instead, you don't know what they're going through. They might have had a bad day. Maybe they're winding down. They're about to go to bed. I was just talking to a client and she said, yeah, I gave feedback to my husband right before he went to go to sleep. It's like he was probably not ready for it because he was winding down after a busy day. So let's say you do want to have a conversation with someone, ask when they're available. So you could use a script. Hey, first name, our working relationship is important to me, and I'd love to talk to you more about the conversation that happened yesterday. So when is a good time to talk? Are you free today at 2 p.m. or tomorrow at 4 p.m.? So here's what's great about the script. You're sharing with the other person, our working relationship is important to me, or our marriage, our partnership, our relationship is important, right? And the next structure of the sentence, I would love to talk to you more about the conversation that happened yesterday. So you're letting them know, hey, it took some time to reflect. I really want to talk about it. And instead of saying, when are you free, which is open ended, you want to give them 2 specific times. Are you free today at 2, tomorrow at 4? It doesn't matter what time it is. It's just in terms of psychologically, when you're scheduling something, you want to give people options so it's easy for them to make a decision. Now, if they're not free those 2 dates and times that you gave them, then ask them 2 times they're available so you could schedule it. The second tip and script is use the thank you sandwich. It's a thank you sandwich I actually learned from one of my first coaches and my mentor, my old boss. And here are 2 examples you could use both professionally and personally. Professionally, and I'm going to just give you the context. It's basically if you have to give feedback to a colleague or a boss about wanting to change the systems of the project. So here's a script. I understand that we've been doing this project like this in the past 3 years, while at the same time, I've seen these issues come up. And then you list out the issues. To solve these issues, here's what I'm thinking. And then insert the list of solutions and why you think it's going to work. And then end the script with, what are your thoughts? So let's break down why this works. You start off with an iMessage. I'm not talking about your phone iMessage, but you're focusing on what you are noticing. Right? I understand that we've been doing this project like this. And if you notice, I'm talking about the project rather than the individual. So you're saying, I'm noticing this about the project. Third thing is you notice in this script is we use the words while at the same time, right? So I share, we've been doing the project for 3 years while at the same time. I'm using while at the same time instead of but because but is a negative connotation, right? And then you want to list out the issues of the process or the project and give concrete examples and data. And then afterwards, you're sharing them to solve these issues. Here's what I'm thinking, and then list out the solutions. And so that you're showing it's not a conflict about whose ideas are better or what's wrong with their idea. You want to end the script with, what are your thoughts? So then it is a feedback loop and you're involving them in the conversation. So let's say we want to use this thank you sandwich with a loved one. I actually have one where I use it with a family member because they said a comment that I just wasn't thrilled about. And this family member said it at a party. So there was other family members there. And what's important is when you are providing feedback or you're advocating for yourself to do it one-on-one as opposed to in front of the group. So this is what I said to my family member. Hey, I know you were joking around when you said, and then I shared what that person said. Well, at the same time, I just want to let you know it did hurt me. And I would really appreciate if you stopped saying comments like that. This is why the sentence structure works. I once again used I messages, acknowledging it's how I felt. And I shared what I wanted the outcome, which is to stop. So, sure, I didn't end the structure with a question. It was advocating for myself and sharing that I would like for it to stop. So, I share more about the thank you sandwich in episode 47, where I have more scripts and strategies for boundaries and negotiation. Legacy leader, want more tips and advice for your business, career, and life? Sign up for my Gifts and Gifts newsletter at elainelu.com/join. So here's 3 things you'll get. 1, you'll get funny gifts, because who doesn't love memes and pop culture references? This newsletter is so fetch. 2, you'll also receive actionable gifts, tips on your business, career, and life. And 3rd, you'll also receive the gift of me. So my Gifts and Gifts newsletter is like an up-to-date diary. Think Zanga or Live Journal, where I'm going to share vulnerable stories, relatable mistakes, and important life tips like what to watch on Netflix. So if you're ready for those fun gifts and actionable gifts to create a more sustainable life, join my newsletter at elainelu.com/join. All right, the 3rd tip and script on how to give feedback is when you're ending a conscious, difficult conversation, whether it's talking to your partner or coworker, end that conversation with what you think you should do and what the other person should do. So here's a script. This is what I heard. I will work on this. And then you list it. And you will work on this. Is there anything else I am missing? So once again, we are using I messages of you summarizing what you're hearing that you need to work on. And you're also summarizing what the other person is hearing. And then you are using a feedback loop of, hey, is there anything else I am missing? So doing this ensures that each party understands how the conversation has ended and what each person is responsible for. All right, 4th and final tip. Take time to reflect after conversations that both did not go well and did go well. In this way, you can see what were patterns of conversations that did not go well and what were patterns of conversations you have had that did go well. I just want to remind you, communication is a skill. You could unlearn what was taught from you in the past, and you could learn new ways to deepen relationships that are important to you right now. It's important to stay conscious and mindful when communicating. And when we find ourselves maybe heated and unregulated, wait, pause, take a deep breath, until we are more calm and mindful to communicate with the other person. So, here's my action item and reflective question for you. From this episode, from the 4 tips and scripts, what is one, just minimum of one, tool you can implement from what you heard here? Is it one, asking when the other person is available to talk when you want to share feedback? Because you don't want to land a bomb on that other person when they're not ready to talk. Remember, you don't know how someone else's day went, or maybe they just aren't ready because they're excited to go to bed. 2, use a thank you sandwich with iMessages. Share points of where you disagree with the process or project or didn't understand something and focus on that and provide evidence. Then share solutions and end it with a question on their thoughts. So it is a feedback loop, like a circle, and it's an improvement between both parties. Third, end difficult conversations sharing what you heard you should do and what the other person should do, and ask if there is anything else you are missing. And fourth, remember, communication is a skill. So make sure to reflect after conversations that did not go well and did go well so you know how to improve on it. Well, I want to end this episode with gratitudes. And let's be real. Thank you, therapy. And to all my therapists I used to work with. And that is right. It is therapist with an S because your girl needed a lot of work. And if you want to learn more about therapy, whether you need therapy or coaching or both, hey, I got both. You can actually listen to episode 25 where I talk about the difference between coaching versus therapy. Which one do you need? With a good friend of mine who is a therapist, psychologist, Dr. Nazanan Mawali. So that's episode 25. And then thank you to my own mentors who have helped me, specifically Bobby Abram, the executive director of Pasadena City College Foundation, my ex-boss, forever life coach. I appreciate and love you, and I'm so lucky to have had you as my boss and now friend before I started my business. And congrats to you for listening to this. I mean, I remember when I just didn't know. I didn't know communication was a skill. I didn't know you could learn the right tools to communicate with another person. So, congrats on taking this step on listening to this episode. But not only do I want you to just listen, but I want you to integrate, implement, and reflect. And this is actually a new thing I kind of want to start doing, whether it's monthly or bi monthly. I want to do more of a conscious conversation segment. So if you really loved this episode, DM me on Instagram at Elaine Lou _. That's ELAINELOU _. Or if you don't use Instagram and you use LinkedIn, look for Elaine Lou Cardis. And let me know if you loved it, because I want to start doing more conscious conversation segments. So, congrats to you for learning the right tools to communicate, give feedback, and deepen both your personal and professional relationships. So, if you enjoyed this podcast episode on how to give feedback, here are 4 things you can do if you feel called to do them. 1, share this with a friend. Send them a personal message on how this episode can help them give feedback so they can better advocate for themselves and have better relationships. 2, leave a rating and review. Hit that follow and subscribe button for the Color Your Dreams podcast so more women of color and allies like you can create a life with more conscious conversations and a sustainable career and life. 3rd, want to come to my next Color Your Dreams retreat for career leaders and business leaders on Thursday, October 5th and Friday, October 6th with 13 other amazing leaders? Well, you could go to elainelou.com /retreat, where we could help you create your 2024 plan while making sure you reflect on 2023. And then number 4, if you would like to see how to work with me and my team to create a more sustainable life where you can be more present with yourself and create your own checklist of success, one that is not created for society and loved ones, then schedule a complimentary legacy, business, and career review call at elainelou.com/call. That's ELAINELOU.com/call. Legacy Leader, did you enjoy today's episode? If so, subscribe to the Color Your Dreams podcast and leave a rating and review. It goes a long way and it lets other fellow leaders find this incredible free resource. And if you want more, you can find all the links and information mentioned in this episode in the show notes on my website at elainelou.com/podcast. That's ELAINELOU.com/podcast. All right, Legacy Leader, I'll see you in our newest episode in 2 weeks. And remember to follow your dreams to lead your legacy.